All right, Any Given Sunday Sports Special. It's me, Jesus. I got my main man's Pots and Pans, Anthony, on the other side. Steve, unfortunately, is not able to make it, but Anthony and I will hold it down. This is Any Given Sunday Sports Special Playoff Edition. That's right, the playoffs are here. They have arrived. There are 4 teams that have made it. Well, before we get into that, let's get ahead. Let's do a quick recap. First one we're going to do is Drugs Delaney versus Dream Killers. Both these teams, unfortunately, are now officially eliminated. Drugs Delaney wins 97-73. Anthony, really quick, anything you want to say about this game?
Not much you can say. Drugs Delaney had an excellent season. Things didn't really work out the way he wanted to. There were some odd moves on his behalf, going with Kaepernick over Cam Newton. He thought it was a better matchup. These things kind of happen. Had a great game from Jordan Howard. The Dream Killers, it just a little bit too. They finally got their quarterback. I think if they got it a little bit early in the season, some things really would have changed. But at that time, it wasn't much can do. You know, his guys showed up. Bell showed up. Prescott had a below standard game, but it was aggressive until 1 o'clock. Then after that, everything kind of went downhill. But you know, I think these 2 teams next year, with some slight tweaking, can make some really big changes. They have good keepers, and I hope for the best for them in the future.
I'm just gonna go really quick. Dennis, congratulations on the win. At least you end your season on a win in Any Given Sunday. It was a tough season. Here's a guy who took over a team that was an absolute mess. Jeff did not do him any favors with the roster that he left Dennis. So Dennis came in, he tried his best. I actually disagree. I don't think Dennis has many keepers. Cam Newton, I think, will bounce back. I know Dennis has considered moving on from Cam Newton. I highly recommend against that. Everybody knows throughout Cam Newton's career, he's always been one good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year. He just had his bad year, which means next year will be his good year. On the other side, I actually agree. Lewis, on the other hand, does have some decent keepers, some options that he's going to be able to look into there. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does going down the road. But these are 2 teams looking forward to next year. Next game we're going to do really quick. We got Tampa's Empire 105 to Don't Trade with Jesus 80. Yeah, I mean, not much to say, but go ahead. What do you have?
It became a tougher game than it should have. And I'm not in a sense meaning by the score. I mean in the sense that, Steve had to kind of put out a lineup and put in a good matchup because it was really important that he tried to secure the best possible positioning for him. Likewise,
Yep.
The Empire struggled early in the season, but ending 9-4 is a terrific record. I think he'll be a problem in the playoffs. I don't think Andrew Luck goes against another terrible defense like the Jets did. They just kind of stunk the joint up. But all in all, he's a very solid team. He has a lot of weapons, a lot of guys with really good matchups in the playoffs. On the opposite side, it was just a roller coaster ride. It's basically roster configuration. I mean, we say what we want to say about Jamison Crowder, but over the past 5 weeks, he's had at least 8 fantasy points. You were expecting more from Drew Brees. It didn't work out. He got a lot from Thomas Rawls. I'm expecting a whole lot better next season, but there's not much really to say here. Empire did what they need to do. They close out the show. They head off to the playoffs, and they're ready to go.
I'm just going to go really quick. I mean, at the end of the day, this was one of the epics of all-time history. Just downfalls, just complete turnaround. Steve touched on it last week. I mean, Dom lost his last 5 games. His last 4 games. His last 4 games he lost. That's brutal. Had he won those games, we're talking about a completely different situation. I mean, let me just go over his points total the last 4 weeks of the season. 83, 72, 64, 95, and 80. That is brutal. The man barely averaged over 85 points a game the last 4 weeks of the season. That's the reason. On the other side, Steve went in, had a very, very, I hate to be disrespectful, but I'm going to have to be honest. I think you'd agree with me, Anthony. A cakewalk division, but Steve did what he had to do, and he walked over that division. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Only 1 loss in that division, and I believe that was the first week of the divisional games. I'm sorry, second week of the divisional games to Dennis. Other than that, he ran over everybody.
Look, 7 straight. That's all you need to say. I mean, he hasn't lost in a very long time, and like I said, they're going to be a problem in the playoffs. But great job by the Empire.
What? And now we're gonna go to the next game. The next one we're gonna do. I guess we'll do your game, Anthony, if you want. A slightly punty vibe. He goes out and he beats all effing losers and eliminates Pops. Pops beat you the first two, but you came out here and you said it early in the season when he took your kicker from you that you were gonna make sure that you took care of it. What better revenge than to knock him out the playoffs, Anthony? How do you feel, man?
I feel great, and the crazy thing that his kicker did great. His kicker got him 16. Like, that's crazy. Like, but the only problem is that if your kicker gets you 16, you're expecting Aaron Rodgers to double that up, and that didn't happen. I think it would have been a tighter game if it really worked out that way. His team had a lot of guys in double figures. Only two guys I see here in singles, and I had three. But more than anything else, the guy who's been saving my fantasy season last year was Cam Newton. This year is David Johnson. LaShawn McCoy got 19 and didn't score. DeAndre finally got into the end zone. I might have some trouble with the quarterback matchups, but right now, I think that the playoffs are rounding out. These guys are coming down the stretch. They all have something to play for. And all in all, it's going to be very interesting. I tip my hat to Pops. He's been competitive all season. The guy just would not die. But in the end, I locked everything up. We made it to the playoffs, and now we're here.
Hey, man, listen. Props to you, Anthony. You went out there. You took care of business. You said you didn't want Pops in there. You and I, we both were saying it. We had one job to do, and we went out there, and we both beat him the last 2 weeks of the season. It wasn't easy. Pops, as always, is a heck of a competitor. I made Pops a promise. I told Pops I was going to do everything I could to win my game against Rich, even though I didn't want Pops in there. I was not going to throw the game intentionally because that's not the right thing to do. I did my job, Pops. Unfortunately, you weren't able to pull through, and at the end of the day, the reason for your loss is the reason that you've been struggling all season, and that was your wide receiving core. You just weren't able to get that right all season, and that was your ultimate downfall. Devontae Adams gives you 1 point. Tyrell Williams, he gave you 10 points, but that was really off that one touchdown pass, because other than that, he really did nothing else in that entire game. He was dealing with a shoulder injury. On the other side, David Johnson. Yeah, that's the guy right now. And that's going to be the biggest headache throughout the entire playoffs. Yes, McCoy is going to be great and all that. But the man right now, the man of the hour is David Johnson. He is going to be an absolute handful. I have to deal with him for 2 weeks. It's going to be interesting. But we'll see. We'll get more into that in the next set of games. Last one here. New York Powers defeat McPoon Handling Goat Engines 112-102. And McPoon Handling Goat Engines, because of the Pops loss, get into the playoffs. Anthony, what you got?
Hey, look, I can't even say the guy backdoored himself into the playoffs. I mean, it was pretty much if he would have won and Pops would have won, it might have been different. But everything just kind of just worked out the way it was, I guess, intended to. On his side, his guys showed up. Great game by Kelsey and Latavius Murray. Roethlisberger with 21. Devonta Freeman with a really good game. I think with the injury to Julio Jones, that's going to be a problem for him in the playoffs. But it may mean a little bit more of Devonta and a little more Tevin Coleman. But we're going to see how that goes on the other side. The weird thing about, we'll talk about this when we get to the playoff matchups, but your team is doing what they're supposed to do, even with Gronk out and not really getting much from Fedorowicz. Getting a solid 10 from Jeremy Hill with just a touchdown because he had a ton of carries and no yards.
Like 33 yards and like 20-something carries.
Yeah, like they kept giving the ball and nothing happened. And like that touchdown was a lifesaver. The Broncos defense showed up, got Kelsey, finally got right, and gave you the points you've been expecting from him all season. And again, you talk about David Johnson. Melvin Gordon is just as solid a running back. They keep feeding the guy. We don't really care about who wins or who loses in a regular game. Just really worried about the points that they pile up. Another solid game for him with 19. You get Brown and Beckham together, and they get double figures. Brady puts together a solid game. I'm worried about what's going to conspire in the playoffs with him and that team, but they have something to play for. Tom has something to play for, so it should be interesting. But it doesn't matter. Like, even though Rich lost, you're both in the playoffs. You're both here. And now let's talk about how wild and crazy these playoffs are going to be.
That's exactly what we're getting into next, Anthony. So we're going to go ahead because of the results that happened. Steve then had the opportunity because he was the number one seed, because he owed the tiebreaker against me. Him and I were the division winners. And Steve decided to go ahead and play Rich instead of Anthony. Now, Anthony, I'm pretty sure you take a compliment to that. I think that was him basically saying he wants nothing to do with you. So I know that makes you feel good.
Not really. Not really. Because I feel that of the 4 teams in the playoffs, and I know that he has a 9-4 record, but I think it's against a weaker division.
Yes.
Like, you should, in an 18 league, with all the talent that's there, you should not run off 7 straight. It just shouldn't work out that way. I think that your team and my team are the 2 best in the playoffs, and I don't think we should play each other in the first round. He had an opportunity to fix that. He decided not to, so it's going to be whatever. So hopefully I meet him in the finals, because I don't know if Rich has a good enough shot of beating him, which we'll discuss, but it leaves a really great matchup between you and I. I'd rather not it be that way, but that's how, the champ wants it and the number 1 seed wants it, so that's how it's going to be.
He'll take it, but it's all right. So now let's get into his game. We're gonna start off with his game, right? So I'm gonna get ahead. I'm gonna let you start it off. What we'll do is we'll break down the week to week. We'll start off with week 14, and then we'll also give some input leading into the following week, and then finish it off by our ultimate final pick. So we're gonna give how much who wins the first week, who wins the second week, and then we'll predict as far as who goes to the championship. So I'm gonna let you go ahead. What we'll do is we'll go back and forth with each team. So let's start off with McPoon handlers matchups for this week in week 14.
And I think we need, and here's the weird thing about all 4 teams in the playoffs. They're all fairly strong, but they all have an obvious glaring weakness. For McPoon, it really comes down to the receiving core. Cam hasn't been Cam, so you're still rolling out Kelvin Benjamin, hopefully that he shows up. San Diego, their defense is okay. Joey Bosa is a great pass rusher. Things might get very interesting there. I think Travis Kelce is going to have a great day against Oakland. Oakland has a terrific offense, a poor defense. So why he's rolling with Roethlisberger against Buffalo, I don't know. Maybe we should go with David Carr. Like I said, Oakland's defense just isn't that good. But as of right now, he's going with him. I expect more from Freeman, and I think with Atlanta in contention, Bravo Julio, but a turf toe was a really big injury, especially a guy that suffered a bunch of foot injuries over his duration of his career.
Yeah.
So that's going to be questionable. I think Carlos Hyde's a terrific matchup this week against the Jets. They just look terrible Monday. They've given up on the season, so this is a game he can really explode. Now, saying that, on the opposite side,
well, before you get into that, before you even get into that, now let me go ahead. What we're gonna do, like I said, we'll just break down each team, go back and forth, and then we'll give our ultimate pick at the end. So to bounce off what you said, I actually agree. I play Big Ben this week over Derek Carr. Here's the reason why. I hate Thursday night games, and I hate the road team on Thursday night games, and I hate any quarterback that goes into Arrowhead. Those 3, the combination of that 3, yeah, I just can't touch Derek Carr here. Not because I don't think he's a good quarterback, because he's a very good quarterback, but simply because of the fact that it's a Thursday night game, it's on the road, and it's at Arrowhead. I'm just not. I'm not doing it. Give me Big Ben in that matchup. So I actually agree with him there. Devontae Freeman against the Rams. I don't think Devontae's going to run that well, but I do think Devontae's going to get a touchdown, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Julio Jones, he's dealing with a turf toe injury, and that's brutal because turf toe. I remember AJ Green several years ago when he dealt with that. It hinders you. But here's where I'm going to get ahead and. It's kind of weird because you've been on the Julio bandwagon all season. I've been off of it. Now it seems like you're jumping off of it. I'm going to jump on a little bit here.
Okay.
Julio Jones is not your regular wide receiver. Julio Jones reminds me of a Terrell Owens. You remember Terrell that one year when he went to the Super Bowl? I believe he rushed back from, I forgot what was the injury that he had. It was some brutal injury that he wasn't even supposed to play.
He broke his leg.
Broke his leg. There you go. That's what it was. I can't remember what it was. And the man just put up ridiculous numbers in the Super Bowl with a broken leg. That's Julio to me is that type. I've always said it. Julio reminds me of a Terrell Owens. The problem is Julio's never been as consistent as a Terrell Owens in my book. So I think that here he's gonna fight through it. And against a weak LA secondary, you don't need to be 100% Julio. You could be 70% Julio, and you're still better than that secondary that the Rams have to offer. Benjamin, I'm not big on it, but against San Diego defense, I understand. Personally, me though, I want to see Julian Edelman in that lineup. With no Gronk, Julian Edelman gets more looks. I believe he had 10 points last week. He had 100 yards receiving. So he has to be in there. I'm pretty sure Adam Vinatieri is going to be put in there as far as the kicker is concerned. So Latavius Murray against KC, I'm not great. I don't feel great about that. I actually don't feel great about Carlos Hyde against the Jets either. So I'm not huge on the matchups. But, we'll see how I feel about Steve. Now you're up on Steve.
Here's the thing. What you worry about with Steve is that he cannot afford any of his wide receivers to have a bad game.
Fact.
Because of the weakness he has at running back. Theo Riddick he's okay.
He had 4 carries for 2 yards.
Yeah, he's okay. But what you're hoping is that you have Luck, Hilton, Evans, Graham, Bryant, and Cooper. That's a massive wide receiver core. Now, the question that you have is that Houston's pass defense is fairly good. We can say whatever they can about the offense. Luck and Hilton had a really big game against the Jets, but again, we can't make that the focal point because the Jets at this point just are not very good. I'm expecting a big game from Mike Evans. He did not do well last week.
He's going to explode. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think a big game against them. I think Jimmy Graham definitely gets involved. I think Dez Bryant has an okay game. Not a great one, but an okay game. Because the issue is with the Giants offense, not with the defense. They have 2 really good corners, and right now it's safety that's probably going to be a Pro Bowler. Yep. And again, Amari Cooper going up against that KC defense, it's going to be troublesome. I think here's the weird thing. The thing that really swayed this week's matchup against McPoon handlers is the Vikings defense because they're playing Jacksonville.
I love that matchup.
And not only is Blake Bortles a turnover machine, is that he has this amazing ability to throw pick sixes. And that can really do wonders for your defense. Now, he's starting to build defense against Pittsburgh. Now, if Roethlisberger has a great game, he's not so that didn't really help him. But that defense for the Vikings against them, disregarding their offense, just them against Jacksonville, can really cough up a 20-point week, which might offset some of the things that might happen with Cooper. But I think just the match, they're loaded. They're ready to, if anything, they should be able to pull it out this week. Okay. But again,
I actually disagree with you. I do not like Steve's matchups this week. I think Andrew Luck against Houston. Houston is one of the better secondaries in the league. They're actually ranked number 7th in fantasy against quarterbacks. So I don't think Andrew Luck's going to do what he did against the Jets. And that's what it takes for Steve to break 100 points. Andrew Luck has to do what he did against the Jets for Steve to break 100. That's not happening this week. That's the problem there with Steve. And then, by the way, they're also number 4 in fantasy against wide receivers. So what does that do for T.Y. Hilton? That hurts his value. I don't know about Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick is so reliant on getting those screen passes. That just scares me. I love the matchup against the Bears. The problem is I don't think he's going to get enough carries against the Bears. So I don't know how productive he's going to be. I think Mike Evans is going to be spectacular. I could see a 25-point game from Mike Evans. Easily, I could see that without a problem. I think Jimmy Graham is going to do okay, but I don't think he's going to be a 20-point Jimmy Graham game. I don't like Dez Bryant against the Giants. The Giants, and they know, well, we're playing the Cowboys. There's one receiver for us to have to worry about, and that is Dez Bryant. And then the rest are going to be stacked. They're going to stack the rest in the box, the 8 in the box, and they're going to tell Terrence Williams, yeah, beat us one-on-one, which he's not. I don't think he's capable of doing so. Amari Cooper, you already know how I felt. I told you how I felt about them being on the road at Arrowhead. I don't like that matchup. Personally, I'll probably look at Demaryius Thomas, but I understand why he's not, because if Paxton Lynch is going to start at quarterback, I don't want anything to do with Demaryius Thomas. So I get it. Completely understandable. I think the Vikings defense is going to explode also. But that's where it ends. That's where it ends. So he got 2 guys that I think are going to explode, but everything else is a head scratcher. I think Andrew Luck will put up 20 points. So that's 20 from Luck, 20 from Evans, 20 from the defense maybe. That's 60 points. But I don't know if anybody else there is going to give him double digits after those guys. And say what you want about Rich. Rich still scores. He doesn't score like you and I do, but he still scores. And that's why I think this week, it's no hate on Steve. Believe me, I want to find a way to pick Steve. Because if I could play Steve in the championship as opposed to a Rich in the championship, that's even if I make it. I'm not saying I'm going to make it, Anthony. Don't think I'm saying that by no means. I have too much respect for your team. But, either one of us, who would we rather face in the championship, a Rich or a Steve? Just based off scoring alone, I think we would probably both say, no, give us Steve. Because Steve is so reliant on those receivers. Whereas Rich can beat you with his running backs. Rich could beat you with his receivers. Rich could beat you with his quarterback. He has so many different ways he can go at you. So yeah, in this week, give me Rich for week 1. Let's jump to week 15, Anthony.
Look, if I'm going to give week 14 to the Empire,
Yep.
but not by much, I would say 5 to 8 points, somewhere in that window.
I actually agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a pretty close. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a close game.
Like if the Empire pulls out week 14, it's not going to be enough to really rest your laurels on. Like it's going to be really tight, like just under 10 points.
Yep.
The issue comes down to week 15.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
You see those matchups. Go ahead. Just
Bigfoot has some spectacular.
Go ahead. You do it. Just say it.
Spectacular matchups. Let's say he
Did
rolls.
he not study this when he made his pick?
Yes. So I'm like, well, I looked at my lineup. I didn't care about his. I just realized, like, well, that week 15 matchup doesn't really bode well for him because it comes down to this.
Yeah.
Roethlisberger against Cincinnati, not a good defense. Freeman and Julio against San Francisco, not a good defense. Carlos Hyde against Atlanta. Atlanta's not a good defense. Carlos Hyde's terrific. Latavius Murray, that's a pretty good matchup against San Diego. Kelvin Benjamin against Washington, another pretty good matchup. Kelsey against Tennessee, another really good matchup. None of his guys have bad matchups on the opposite side. Hilton and Luck go up against Minnesota. Jimmy Graham goes against the LA Rams or whatever you want to call them now. I still think they're St. Louis, but it's neither here nor there. But they have a really, really good pass rush against a really, really weak offensive line. That's a problem. Des Bryant against Tampa Bay. Tampa's really showing out. Their defense is stepping it up. And all of a sudden, they're going to be in contention. That's going to be another tight game. I think, Des doesn't break out again. I think it's another, 6 to 9 point week. I don't think he even gets into the end zone because, again, it goes back to your point before. We need to make sure we slow down this one guy. In the aerial assault, we need to make sure that we slow down Ezekiel because he's going to get his one way or the other, but we have to make sure that Bryant does not kill us. But if your number one quarterback, your number one wide receiver are both going against one of the best defenses in the league, if Mike Evans is going against Dallas, and that would be a
they're
really
not
good
going to have the
matchup.
ball, but they're not going to have the ball.
They're not. No. It's a good matchup, but they're not. But it's not happening there either. Like you're gonna put Jameis in a role where he's gonna have to come back. I'm not saying that he's incapable of it, but he's prone to make certain mistakes. There's a lot of bad matchups in week 15. So if he gets the first week, he needs to find a way this week.
He needs to explode.
To hope that all his guys show up because the week after those matchups just are not great at all, and that's going to be a problem. And I think that Rich is going to be able to pull out this 15th week, but you might feel otherwise. But let me get your thoughts.
Who feels otherwise? I completely agree with you.
There we go.
I mean, I'm looking at these matchups, and I just, where can I pick against Rich? Do you realize the worst matchup Rich has that week is his kicker going against the number 9th ranked defense against kickers, and that's if he even plays. That's if he decides he's going to play Dan Bailey that week. If he decides, you know what, no, I'm not going to play Dan Bailey. I think Minnesota's going to kick a lot of field goals. Minnesota's ranked 14th against kickers. So when that's your worst matchup that you have for the week, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, but that's you're in trouble. And again, Steve, there is no hate. Steve knows this. Steve and I, we've been together for so long, working to make Any Given Sunday such a fun league for everybody. And if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be where it's at, this league today. So I truly, I don't want you to think there's any kind of hate, Steve, but I also have to be fair when I give my picks, and I just can't do it, bruh. I'm trying to find a way. Again, like Anthony says, if you can build yourself a good 20 to 25 to 30 point cushion this upcoming week, then maybe even then I still don't know if I pick you, because that's how big I think Rich is going to score the next week. But that's the thing. That's the thing, because Rich is going to put up, not for nothing. I'm looking at it, Steve. This is a 130 point week for Rich here. This is a 130 point week for Rich at minimum. So yeah, I mean, I guess we both agree Rich will advance to the championship according to our picks here.
Yeah, because we discussed this before. The Empire, they have that high game, that low game.
Yep.
That high game, that low game. They need 2 high games, but they haven't been able to pull that together all season.
So then they need to have a record-breaking week this week,
right?
To be able to make up for it.
Right, because even in week 15, like, okay, great, I have the Vikings defense going against Indianapolis. Right, but that only hurts your guys. And even on the opposite side, the Bills played Cleveland. They should definitely get their points there. So,
and even if Rich tries to get cute and say, I'm sorry, Rich, if Steve tries to get cute and say, you know what, I'm going to bench Luck for this week. Mariota is at Arrowhead that week. So that's not a good matchup either. There's no way around it. So that's our pick for that one. Now let's get into the other one, the one that Anthony, you said were the 2 best teams. The New York Powers versus the Slightly Punty Vibe. The New York Powers beat the Slightly Punty Vibe 2-1 this season. But the funny part is, literally, in their head-to-head matchups, if you add up all the points, there was a difference of 1 point.
That's it.
1 single point.
And that's why we're the best team in the league.
Anthony, my man, you go ahead. You get to go first on this, man. What's your feeling? Let's start off with your matchups.
All right. So we'll start with week 14.
Yes.
I think that my matchups are really solid. There might be some finagling that I might do, but we're going to see about that. I think that Miami's coming back down to earth, so the Cardinals defense is a check. DeMarco Murray, I know they said they're going against Denver, but it's a Denver pass defense to worry about, not the ground game. I think that's a check. I think LaShawn McCoy against Pittsburgh, you can run on them. The Giants weren't able to because they can't run on anybody. That's another check. The tight end matchup between him and Fedorowicz, it's really questionable right now because right now I have Reed and I'm worried about his health. So I may go back with Eifert. That's a check. Then with Nelson and Hopkins might not start for me the rest of the playoffs. I'm going to be honest with you. Even though he scored last week, it wasn't great. It was a lot of targets going his way, but they were always off point. He happened to catch it right ball, right time, get in the end zone. Great. I think your wide receiver matchups are better. I think that Rivers is going to have a good day against Carolina, but I think Wentz is going to have a good day against New Orleans. I absolutely believe that. I think this week it really comes down to David Johnson and Melvin Gordon. I think the Miami defense, I think right now, like they've just kind of been exposed and not as good as you think they are. But if he's the number 1 running back in fantasy, there's a really strong case you can make for Melvin Gordon being number 2. A very strong case. And like I said, Carolina just got destroyed. And, they may want to come out there and kind of prove their point, like, we're not giving up on the season. It's over for you guys. Finito. Wrap it up. It doesn't matter. I think having Rivers and Gordon going against that Carolina defense without Luke Kuechly, that's getting worn down.
Week 14, I think, am I on the wrong? Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong weeks. Continue.
Yeah. Right. So for week 14, having those 2 guys against that Carolina defense that couldn't get to Russell Wilson at all with that poor offensive line. They got to him a few times, but nothing really that's damaging. Like I said, they lost 40-7. I mean, there's not much you can really say or do after that. And having those 2 guys coming into town, I think with everything being everything, honestly, I think that you would win this week. And I think when you explain your team, you'll understand why. It'll be tight, but I think that your team will win. I know it's weird me going against myself, but that's just how I feel about this week. But that's me speaking on behalf of the Vibe. For the Powers, since that's your team, how do you feel about this week?
I mean, I don't feel the greatest about it. I do like some of the matchups that I have compared to yours for this week. I love the fact that Jody's going against Seattle. That is something I really, really enjoy. DeAndre Hopkins going against the Colts. Say what you guys want about the Colts. Everybody likes to rag on the Colts and, they're this bad defense. But at the end of the day, their corners, I mean, they do have one good corner by the name of Vontae Davis. And Vontae Davis is a damn good cornerback, and he likes to shadow. So I think he will shadow, and I think he's going to shadow DeAndre Hopkins. And I believe only one person this whole season has made Vontae Davis look bad, and that was Antonio Brown. And last I checked, there's only one Antonio Brown in this entire league. So, yeah.
Unfair, he's Antonio Brown, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So I really do feel good about this matchup. I think this is the week that I have to build a little bit of a cushion. I don't think I have to put up a 20-point cushion like a Steve does, but I would like to have about a 10-point cushion, 5, the least amount, because I was looking at some of your matchups for next week. They start to get a little bit scary. I do think, I haven't decided yet at quarterback, believe it or not, whether I'm going with Rivers, whether I'm going with Brady. I want to see what happens. I like the fact that Brady's at home. I like that it's a Monday night game. I think that the Ravens defense, while they have a great pass rush, that secondary can't be had. What concerns me though is that offensive line for New England. Sometimes they tend to let Brady get hit too much. So that's why I have Rivers in there currently. I think Melvin Gordon, he's not going to outscore David Johnson. But all I want Melvin Gordon to do is keep it close. Keep it close. Keep it within 10 points of and that's the problem. I don't think anybody else has that in this league. That are in the playoffs. Steve definitely doesn't have that at running back, and Rich doesn't have that. That one running back that's not going to beat David Johnson, but he just has to stay close. And I think he can do that, because then all that does is then that opens it up for my two wide receivers to go berserk in Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham. And that's where I don't think this week you have the matchups to go with those two receivers. Right. That's where I don't think a 10-point game from those two guys, like I had a 10 and I think 11 points I had this week, that's not going to suffice this week. I think I need them to get me 15 plus. Maybe even one of them get me 20 points. Because I do think I don't think DeMarco Murray is going to put up 20 points, but I do think DeMarco Murray is going to get double digits. And LaShawn McCoy is going to do very well against Pittsburgh, because I think Buffalo's not going to want to give Pittsburgh the ball. How do you not give Pittsburgh the ball? You run the clock. You run the ball. So I do think I win this week. I agree with you on that. I would personally like to win by 10 points, but I have too much respect for your team. I think maybe I'm about 3 to 5 points, realistically speaking, just because of that one man, David Johnson. He's a wrecking machine.
Yes, he's showing out. And like I said, I worry about that matchup is that I won't have a huge advantage in that. So let's say Johnson gets 21. I can see Gordon getting 18, 19. Realistically.
Yeah, I would, and that's a win. If he's only within 2 points of your guy, to me, I think then all of a sudden my cushion should be even larger. Because I'm projecting he's going to be within 10 points. But if you're telling me he's going to be within 2 points, yeah, that would be a home run for me.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to the Week 15 matchups. This is where you have some really juicy ones. Go ahead, Anthony. You start off.
And this might be the only thing that gets me over the top, is that that the week before I can keep it close. So either win or lose, I think that, again, it won't be a big point disparity. Unlike the other matchup, the following week's matchups were so far apart.
Yes.
It just didn't make any sense. Like that's going to be a problem. Now, week 15, New Orleans does not have a good defense. I have Johnson going against them. I have to do something maybe about the Cardinals' defense, because their offense is good, and they are going against New Orleans at New Orleans. But I think Johnson has a good game. I think if there's going to be any saving grace, I may just have to start Hopkins that week. Jacksonville, I know they have a young upcoming defense. They have Jalen Ramsey and a bunch of young guys, but they haven't played this far into the season before. They're not going anywhere. They look like they're giving up on the season also. I think Jordan Nelson against Chicago is a really good matchup. Sean McCoy against Cleveland is a really good matchup. We're going to see what we're going to do about the quarterbacks, but Winston against Dallas, again, if Dallas controls the ball, Winston might not have it much. Now, if he has to kind of fight back, I gamble and roll a dice that, he throws those big bombs and things work out and they keep it close?
But you don't have a great matchup with Eli either against Detroit, so it's a tough one for you no matter what.
It's kind of pick your own poison. You got to kind of see how they perform this week, and then is it something I believe can carry over to the following week? So with Nelson, with Reed, with McCoy, and with Johnson,
they have to carry you that week. They have to. They have to carry you that week. Absolutely.
And what I worry about is that I think that week 14 is crucial, because if I win, I need, again, with it being 2 weeks, you need to fill up a really good buffer. You have to, just in case something happens to go wrong. Yes. Like for you, I'm going to speak to your team briefly. For week 15, with, again, if you're going with the Rivers-Gordon matchup, it's going to be a shootout in Oakland, because that defense is just not any good. I know they have Khalil Mack, but overall that secondary just is not good. You can run on them also.
28th against the run, fantasy running backs this year.
Yeah, your offense can do things against them. Antonio Brown should have a good day against Cincinnati, but they're division rivals. They know each other. Detroit has a really good pass defense. Jeremy Hill hasn't really been himself. Like I said, like 20 some odd carries, 33 yards. Like you hope he gets into the
I did
end zone.
touchdown. He's a touchdown dependent back.
You need that. Rob Kelly, that might be a good matchup against Carolina. And the Broncos versus New England, you're going to have to see how that goes. Now, I believe that I have better matchups for Week 15 for the core guys that I need. I'm worried about with the Rivers-Gordon combination against that really, really weak Oakland defense.
Yeah.
Is that something that's really going to sway in their favor? And I think they still have – I mean, they're out of the hunt to get a playoff spot, but they can still play spoiler. They can still go out there and do their jobs. I don't think they've given up yet.
Yes.
But I think I should win Week 15. But that doesn't mean I actually get out of this round because it really comes down to what happens the week before. But, again, I was speaking on your team. Now, since this is the crucial week for both of us to see where any of us go, let me know your thoughts on this matchup for this week.
I mean, let's be honest. We both fought so hard this season. We worked so hard to build our team. I mean, Anthony, you and I, pre-draft, we had conversation after conversation. We gave each other feedback on each other's, thoughts. So, we have to pick each other. I have to pick myself, you have to pick yourself, because we've made it. Our team took us this far. If we don't believe in our team and we made it this far, then there's a problem. So, right. I obviously am going to pick my team too. But it's really not. I agree with you. It's not going to be a blowout because those matchups, David Johnson once again is going to put up quarterback-like numbers. So even if Winston doesn't show up, David Johnson's like, don't worry about it. I got you, bro. David Johnson may actually average 25 points in this playoff series. He may even average 30 points in this playoff series. That with those matchups that he has. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to do much in that game. I do think Jordy will do well. I think Jordan Reed will do well also. LaShawn McCoy should do well. I don't think DeMarco Murray is gonna crush me either. But on the other side, I was looking at the matchups. I love the matchups against Oakland. Make no mistake, this one I can almost guarantee, unless something crazy happens, Phillip Rivers is definitely starting Week 15. I'm not putting Tom Brady at Denver against that Denver team. I'm just not doing it. So right. Phillip Rivers will definitely start there. I'm gonna start Melvin Gordon, obviously. I think Antonio Brown got shut down the last time against Cincinnati earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. So I have to hope that he can go ahead and, and bounce back. But that's not a guarantee. Odell Beckham, he's matchup proof. So I think he'll still put up some numbers just because, as you've seen last week, you can shut him down, but he'll still somehow get 100 yards. You may keep him out the end zone, but he's still going to get 100 yards. And I believe they had a pass interference that they had to stop him from scoring a touchdown in this last week's game. I know you said Jeremy Hill is he's a very reliant on touchdowns. I actually don't plan on playing him that week. Jarvis Landry at the Jets is probably going to be the guy that I go with that week. The Jets secondary is atrocious. So I think he's going to have a very, very, very good game against the Jets. The Broncos defense against New England, I don't feel great about that. I'm going to be honest with you. But what I'm counting on there is sacks. That's really what I'm counting on more than anything. They're going to give me some sacks. I do think Gostkowski is going to do great because I don't think they're going to be able to punch it into the end zone all the time. I think they're going to be scoring field goals. So, yeah, it's going to be close, Anthony. Listen, if I'm going to lose to somebody, and this has happened to me 2 previous years that I made the playoffs, I've always had to face the best team. When I had faced Shakir, the one year I made the playoffs as the top seed, and Shakir came out, won the championship. The following year, I believe I played Pops. Pops came out, won the championship. So if you beat me, that almost tells you that you're going to win the championship, Anthony. But it's going to be a great series. It was a great season. Look, this is what we all play for right here. This is what we all play for. I would have loved to see you in the championship, Anthony, but this is the situation that we're in. Let's go. Let's make the best of it. Everybody, whoever's not in the playoffs, just to let you guys all know, the team that scores the most points from week 14 to week 17 will be able to pick the draft order for the following year.
So set your lineups.
Set your lineups, everybody. Steve, Anthony, and I, we got love for you, man. Please do not get upset with what our picks are. It has nothing to do with us not liking you. It just has to do with the matchups, bruh. That's all that it is. It's all love. Always has been, always will be. Maybe next week, you can come on, defend yourself, and maybe even bash us if you're up by 40 points, right? So that's our show, man. Anthony, you got anything else?
I'm just saying, Steve, I know you're going to listen to this, be strong, feel better, everything else like that. And I'm not bashing the guy to say that, he's going to lose the matchup just because, he didn't pick me to face him or something else like that. It's just more in the sense that you lorded over the AFC South, and like you won the AFC South. Great, it's the weakest division. Like just because you made the playoffs doesn't mean it's going to guarantee you a championship. So if you catch this fade against Rich, you catch this fade against Rich, man. That's life. It happens. I'm not going to get mad, and I'm not hating. And I know he had the best record, but you had it against inferior competition.
Ooh.
I'm saying that with complete disrespect to the rest of that division because you guys did nothing to help the situation. Sorry,
man.
It's Tuesday. You got to be honest,
Steve. Man, I won't go that hard at you, man. Listen, you still won your division, but again, it's just our division's a little bit tougher. You're with the big boys now. And unfortunately, I don't think you can swim with the big boys. Not this year. Your team isn't capable of it. Other years, I know you will definitely have, and you will be better. It's just this year, I don't think you can swim with the big boys. But everybody, that's our show. Stay safe. Be safe. We're out. Anthony, best of luck this week. And Steve and Rich, best of luck to you too this week also. Peace.
Fellas, game on.